William Bryan Sheets.
So could you spell your last name?
Yes, Sheets.
And what is your birthday?
9/30/33.
33. So you are 87?
Yeah, 86.
86. I'm sorry to ask.
Next month.
Next month?
Next month.
Exactly, the September.
September I'll turn 87.
87. And where were you born?
In Traverse City, Michigan.
Michigan?
Yes.
Could you spell the city that you were born?
Yes, it's Traverse City, Traverse, city, and it's Michigan.
Yes. And tell me about your family background, your father, mother, and your siblings.
Yes.
At the time.
Okay. My father was John Austin Sheets, and he was born in Arkansas and moved to Michigan, and he served in World War I in the Navy, and after that he went to a dental school in St. Louis, Missouri, and then moved to Traverse City, Michigan. And he had a dental practice there.
Wow.
He married my mother, who was an immigrant from Scotland, and she immigrated from Scotland in about 1915 to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And after going to school there, she went to Traverse City to go to nursing school. And she became a nurse in Traverse City, and she and my father met there and married and lived there almost all of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I have one older brother. He passed away about 5 years ago.
I'm sorry.
He was a medical doctor and served in the U.S. Army. During peacetime, he was not involved in any military action. I was, of course, born there, went to school there, high school.
What high school?
Central High School.
Yeah.
In Traverse City, and graduated in 1952. I'm quite mechanically inclined, so I'd worked starting at about 13 in a garage working on automobiles, and that was my love, to work on cars. So I was doing that after school and also working gas stations, pumping gasoline. And when I graduated, I went to work for a car dealership there, a DeSoto Plymouth dealership, and was what they call a grease monkey. I greased and changed oil on automobiles. And towards the end of 1952, I got a draft notice that I was going to be drafted in the military, and in April of '53, I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force.
So you joined the Air Force, right?
Yes, I joined the Air Force for a 4-year term.
And before we talk about your military service, I want to ask this question. Did you learn anything about Korea in your school? Did any teacher talk about Korea, or did you study anything about Korea so that you know where Korea was in the map or any history?
I think about all we knew was where Korea was. We knew that there was a war going on in Korea. That's about all we knew.
So you didn't know much about Korea?
No.
Uh-huh. So when you joined April 1953, the Air Force, where
Yes.
did you get the basic military training?
I went to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, and went to basic training there.
Mm-hmm. And how long?
You know, I'm not sure. I think it was probably 12 weeks.
And then, where did you go?
To Denver, Colorado, to Laurie Air Force Base,
Mm-hmm.
to go to electronics school.
Mm-hmm.
After getting through the basic electronics school, I went to a B-47 turret systems mechanic school.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I beg your pardon?
Could you repeat that?
I went to a B-47.
B-47.
B-47, it's an aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Turret systems, gunnery systems, maintenance school.
Mm-hmm.
And after I graduated from that program, and that was about a 8-week or so school, 10-week. I'm not sure. I could probably figure it out by looking at my records.
Yeah.
Then they asked me if I would like to go to the Air Force Instructor School, and it was also there at Laurie Air Force Base, and that was a school of about probably 6 or 8 weeks, and it was to act as an instructor in a classroom. So I did that, and then they put me to work teaching turret systems mechanics for B-47s at Laurie Air Force Base. So I stayed right there.
So you went through a lot of teaching school about electronics,
yes.
mechanics, and so on.
Yes,
So that was your dream.
yes. And this was all at Laurie. There was a lot of schools there of various kinds, aircraft maintenance schools. And when I got to Laurie Air Force Base, there was 40,000 people there on the base. The base today is gone. Laurie Air Force Base no longer exists. It's disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And so I taught students in classes, and typically there were a class that would last 12 weeks. And we had turret systems in their classroom to work on. And I'd have a class of maybe 14 students. And we'd go through the radar system maintenance and the turret systems and gun systems portion of that aircraft. And then they would leave and go out to SAC bases to work on aircraft. After about a year and a half of that, the B-52 was starting to be used, and it wasn't even used yet. It was through development, and they had just started production of the B-52s. And they had a new turret system on the back of it that was different than the turret systems of others. So they sent some engineers from the company that made the turret system to the base, and another airman and I worked with them to learn how the new system worked and all about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this other student and I wrote the training material for the new program to teach students how to maintain the B-36 turret systems, which was a tail turret, a gun turret. So that's the interesting thing. Following going through that, we spent time writing the materials, and it was a whole class, a schedule-like thing. All the adaptions, testing that you do to see if there was malfunctions and how to fix them, and the various levels of operation of the turret system. And then the first 2 classes came to the school, and the gentleman that I was working with and I each took one of those classes to teach. And I always taught in the evening from 6 until midnight. That was the shift I worked.
Wow.
And I went to my classroom that first night with the new class, and the students were already there, already sitting in their seats. And I walked into the class and up front, and I looked at them, and they're all officers. I'm an enlisted man, an airman first class. And I introduced myself and had them introduce themselves to me. And I said, gentlemen, let's take off our jackets and we'll go to work.
Yes.
So we were then, no rank appeared.
No, normal people.
So I had those students for about 4 weeks. And they were going to be maintenance officers for what was known as a wing of B-52s, which was 15 aircraft. So each one of them were going to go to a SAC base and be in charge of all the maintenance on a B-52. So they were going to our school, and then they were also going to a school on power, on engines, and on airframe, and on bomb navigation systems. So that was what their futures were going to be.
Got it.
Interesting, one of the students in that class was a student named Wally Schirra. Wally Schirra later became one of the astronauts, the first astronauts.
Oh.
And he looked me up here in Cody one time when he visited Cody, Wyoming. Anyway, that was basically what I did, and then I continued with our regular program of teaching maintenance students about a 10-week or 12-week course on that turret system, and I continued doing that until I completed my 4 years of service and was discharged.
So tell me about aircraft. Which aircraft did you like most? B-47 or 36, you said, or B-52?
Oh, the B-52, and it's still in use today. You know, it's the longest used military aircraft ever, I think, and still going to be used for another 20 years probably. So it's going to be almost 100 years old when it's finally retired.
Yeah, right.
There's about 50 some of them in service, and they've been changed and modified over and over again, and it's just a great, very functional aircraft. It works.
So you joined the Air Force April of 1953.
Right.
So when you getting all this the instructions and educations in the schools, so the Korean War almost ended, right?
It was, yeah, it ended that next summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Korean War ended in 1953. So did you join
it ended in 53?
Yeah, did you join the Air Force?
Okay, that's right, it ended that summer.
That summer. So,
Yeah.
but you joined the Air Force in 1952 or 53?
53.
So
Yes.
some of your students might have gone to Korea, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do you have any episode or any memory that you have?
I don't. I had some students that had been out working on other aircraft and then were coming back to go to a new school, which I was teaching. But I don't recall any stories about what they were doing. We were busy with what we were doing and just weren't aware much of what was going on elsewhere, I guess.
So when did you retire from the Air Force?
I was discharged then April 17th of 1957.
Yeah.
4 years, exactly 4 years later.
And then what did you do?
I moved to Wyoming, to Sheridan, Wyoming, and started college at a community college in Sheridan, Wyoming. I had decided, I didn't know what a college was when I was in high school. But by the time I got out of the service, I knew I was ready to go to college. So I started college there.
Did you get the GI Bill?
Yes, I did.
Good.
I went to Sheridan College for 2 years studying agriculture.
Agriculture.
Yes.
You were in engineering and electronics, and that was your dream. Now you changed your dream.
Yes. And then I was interested in farm power and machinery in agriculture, not the crops themselves, and in water. And I went to school there 2 years and then went to the University of Wyoming for 2 years and graduated with a bachelor's degree in agriculture. And also I got a teaching certificate so that I could go teach in the public schools in the ag programs.
Mm-hmm.
And just shortly, just about the time I was to graduate, one of the professors I knew there offered me an assistantship to work on a master's degree. And I accepted, and so I went ahead and started working on a master's degree, and I started a research project and taking classes. And in the assistantship, I was teaching classes for him. I was teaching farm power and machinery and electrification. And about halfway through that program, he came to me and said, I have an opportunity to get some fellowships from the federal government to work on PhDs. He says, are you interested in one? I said, yes. So I changed my program and started in that program, and that was a fellowship which didn't require working there, but I started a research project that was very involved and lasted 5 years actually, and I also helped him with his labs and his classes. And the fellowship ran out. After 3 years, I was still working on my program, and he arranged for me to be hired by the university as an instructor. So the university hired me, and I taught classes again for 2 more years, and finally received a PhD in 1968.
Mm. From University of Wyoming.
Yes.
Yeah. 68, you said.
68.
Mm-hmm. And then you became professor there?
No, I didn't. I moved from there to Powell, Wyoming, just down the road here, about 25 miles, to a community college, and I taught there 5 years. And then I left and went to work for a company here in Cody in research and development work and artificial insemination of cattle.
Oh.
And I did that until the company went bankrupt. And then I went to another company that was owned by the same parent company, and it was involved in irrigation water treatment. And I did that. I did some more development work in that program, and we had offices here in Salt Lake and in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
So I was spending time going back and forth, and then I did go overseas with some of that work, trying to develop markets and overseas for the products we were making. So I just did several different things, and then that company went bankrupt. So anyway, I wasn't very good with it that way. After that, I became a state water commissioner here in Wyoming.
Wow.
I managed the water rights on this river that comes through here, and there's a river north of us. And I did that for 5 years. And then I started developing a rural water system to build a drinking water system for properties outside of the cities where there isn't public water. And I worked with that until I retired. That was about 5 years later, but I went back and forth to the legislature to get money. I raised $17 million to build that system, and then I managed the system for a while, and then finally retired.
Got it.
That's what I did.
You were very diverse in your job career.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite a genius.
Huh?
Quite a genius.
Well, I don't know if I'm a genius, but I like doing a lot of different things, mostly mechanical and water, and seeing things happen.
Excellent, excellent. By the way, Bill is wearing mask, white mask, and the reason obviously is because we want to be careful about the COVID-19.
Right.
Yes, and we are here ready to provide the mask. I have my own masks for the Korean War veterans.
Right.
And we have to do this mask. I mean, it's so absurd that people are talking about this and people are demonstrating for the freedom not to wear a mask.
That's right.
This is ridiculous era. And
Let me turn my phone off.
yes,
The mask I'm wearing is one of the masks that were sent from Korea to
Yes.
the U.S. to the Korean War Veterans Association, and we were all given some of those masks.
yes.
We got quite a bunch of them, and I gave them to people around town too.
Yeah, when I saw you right over there when you were standing, I noticed that mask because I also have that exact same mask from the Korean government. And that's an N94, which is pretty good in terms of the protection of viruses. And so, you know, Korean government is doing pretty well with the following up with the Korean veterans.
They sent a plane load of them to the U.S. and they went to, I think they went to Washington, D.C. And I recall seeing an article about it, and they sent 500,000 masks on that airplane. And we ended up with some of them.
Yes. And also Korean government provided test kits and masks to the state of Maryland.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Because the governor's wife is Korean American.
Oh, I see.
So there was a kind of a special treatment. But let me ask this question. Even though you are not in the Korean theater, but you are Korean War veteran, actually Korean War era veteran, you provided service in the United States.
Yes.
As a Korean War veteran, what do you think about the name attached to the Korean War, so-called forgotten forgotten war? Why is it?
I don't know why. It wasn't publicized in this country as much as the next war we were involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a victory at the time. It was just a peace treaty, I guess, signed. And I don't know what all happened. The people were busy. I think people were busy at that time in our own country trying to get things moving again after the Second World War. We were still recovering from that. And we just kind of went on by.
Mm-hmm. So do you know what happened to Korea after the Korean War? Korean War, at the time, Korea was one of the poorest countries. Everything demolished, destroyed. Do you know about the Korean economy now?
Yes, I do. I've gotten a book about it, and it's developed to something that's remarkable. I've never been there, but I've seen a lot of the pictures and read about it, and it's a remarkable country. It really is. It's also, as I recall seeing in one reference, has the highest percentage of PhD education in Korea, South Korea, of anywhere in the anywhere in the world.
Huh? I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is the legacy of the Korean War in the world history?
I don't know. I think that it'll probably be remembered as a war that was fought in a very difficult war. But I don't think that it's going to be held for great memories. To most of the people in this country, they didn't see major things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one thing that's remarkable is the change in South Korea since the war. I mean, they've blossomed, I guess, just become an amazing country.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the reverse is true of North Korea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you think about love affairs between our president and Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader? Do you know about that?
All I know is he's a strange guy, and I certainly don't have any support for him.
What do you mean, the Trump?
Huh?
You mean Trump?
No, oh, for Trump? Oh, of Trump, I do, yeah. He has tried to work with the people of North Korea. They don't seem to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Trump has made an attempt to work with almost every country. He's done an excellent job, I think.
Yeah. Could you explain about what you brought with you?
Sure. I brought you a DD-214.
Yes.
Just to prove that I am a veteran.
Yes.
And then I brought some things here that are just old ID cards I had when I was in the service, and afterwards I was in the active reserve. I automatically went inactive reserve for 4 years after I was discharged. But when I was in college, I needed a little extra money, so I applied to go to active reserve, and was very interested in what was happening. And after I got my degree, my commander asked me if I was interested in applying for a commission. And I said yes. And he helped me get the applications put through, which was an application about a half-inch thick, and submitted it. And because of the drawdown in the military level at that time, there wasn't any openings for commissions to be issued, so I didn't get the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And
so can you explain about your father's dog tag?
Yes, I brought a dog tag of my own that I was issued when I went into service. And then I brought a dog tag of my father's, and he was born in 1894.
Mm-hmm.
And went in the service in 1912, and he went in the Navy. And it's a very interesting dog tag. It's somehow or other it's a metallic engraving, and on the back of it is his thumbprint.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they made the thumbprint.
Can you show it to the camera?
Yes.
Turn it around, put it up to your chin, and show me.
This is the tag. It's a smaller tag than the dog tags we had, and that most of the information is on the front of it. It has his birth date and his date of service, and on the back there's a thumbprint, and I don't know that you'll be able to see it.
You mean thumbprint of your father?
Yes, his thumbprint was on the back of the tag.
Could you put it down? Yes. No, the tag. Yes. No, the other way around, so that I can show. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Can you see it?
Yes.
And I don't know how they did that.
Hmm.
And that was common in the First World War to make dog tags that had thumbprints. That was for ID purposes.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it. So
What else do you have there?
they're just ID cards that I was issued. I also have my draft notice card when I was classified eligible for the draft, and then
Could you show it to the camera?
yes, I think so.
No. You don't have to take it out. Just show the whole thing.
I think this is yes. This card here.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's your draft notice.
Well, it's actually a card of being available, you know.
Got it. And the other one?
Oh, I don't know which was the next card I had that was issued to me.
What about that Lackland Air Base pictures?
This is a picture of the training flight of basic training at Lackland Air Force Base. And all of us that were in that group are pictured here. We were all together during the basic training for about 12 weeks.
So that's 1954. 53.
53.
Yes. Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio.
Where are you?
Oh, down right above my finger.
Okay, let me zoom in. Hey, you're young
Yes.
and very handsome,
Well, I don't know about that.
as you are now. It's a history. It's a history. Could you hold on? Let me take a picture too. And point yourself there. Can you point your own picture there?
Oh, okay. Again, right over my thumb, right over my finger.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
So, Bill, what would you say to young generation about your Air Force service?
I would say that it was the normal when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
All of my friends in high school went in the service. I had a group of friends of maybe 10 that were fairly close friends. We all came back from the service. Again, we all survived. Most of us have gone, but there's 2 of us in that group that are still alive now. But I maintained contact with those boys.
Okay. Any other episode or any other story that you want to share with me on this interview about you as a Korean War veteran?
I don't have any pictures of. I think I have a couple of pictures of myself during that time. But the work I was doing was in a classified security work, and we were working in a secure area all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't allowed cameras and could never take any pictures of ourselves working or where we were working and so on. That's just the way it was.
Okay. Great. Thank you again for coming and sharing your story. And you did your service during the Korean War in the United States, teaching many people about gunnery system of the B-52 and 47, right?
Right.
Yes. And that is your service, and we want to put it on the record, and many people, many students will listen from you about what you did during the Korean War. So I want to thank you on behalf of Korean Nation. I want to thank you for your service.
Okay. I have one descendant that is also in the military. I have a great grandson that just completed serving 4 years in the U.S. Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
And he is just discharged quite recently, and he's working on a farm as a farm mechanic up in Montana, taking care of all the machinery. The farm has about 30 employees, and he's the mechanic to take care of tractors and combines and so on. It's a wheat and grain farm.
Uh-huh. Thank you again, Bill. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad to come in.
Thank you, sir.